So here we are, Borderlands 3, the video that I've been anticipating to make. Borderlands 3, easily the most divisive franchise game in the series. Right, let's try that again. Borderlands 3, the most divisive game in the franchise. Undoubtedly, most people will say that Borderlands 3 is their least favourite out of the franchise, mainly because of the story side of things, and we will get into that, but generally the gameplay is quite well received, and, well, to get to the point, I have a love-hate relationship with Borderlands 3. I know, what a strange thing to have. Because, you know, if we look at the Borderlands Handsome Collection, we can see Borderlands 2 review, and let's have a little look inside. Just close the case. Pretty nice case, to be honest. Yeah, Borderlands 2 review. Borderlands 2, great characters, fun story, and good gameplay. Emphasis on the good gameplay, and is a solid game. I really love Borderlands 2 and have played the hell out of it. But then we come to Borderlands 3, also a very nice case, but with another review. Borderlands 3 review. This should be interesting. Yeah, let's see what it says. Borderlands 3. Meh characters, meh story, but fantastic gameplay loop. A meh game, basically. I love the gameplay, but the story is just so frustratingly average and, in one word, meh. You will understand if you've been following the Borderlands franchise and have played Borderlands 3. Roll the clip.
Ava, I'm trying to keep you safe.
By just ditching me on the ship? You said I could be a vault hunter like you. You promised.
You will. When you're ready. What's up, bitches?
On a gameplay side of things, Borderlands 3 is absolutely fucking fantastic. I love the movement system. It feels smooth, coherent, and beautiful. The slide feature is one of the best things that they have added into Borderlands, and it really adds a great dynamic. As well as climbing, you can actually climb stuff now instead of trying to scale up the side of a mountain or a wall just to get to the top. All of this makes for very smooth gameplay features, but I must say, it felt very similar to Destiny, and when I say very similar to Destiny, like practically the same. I've been playing a fair bit of Destiny 2 recently, and honestly, the parallels are just unbelievable. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I just thought I'd bring it up because for someone who hasn't played the game but has played Destiny, then that is the type of movement that you will be getting in Borderlands 3. So there's your heads up. The changes from Borderlands 2's to 3's movement system is basically night and day. Playing Borderlands 2 nowadays, especially going back, feels clunky and slow. I found it very hard to transition back to Borderlands 2's movement system when I thought I would go back and give it a little go. It just shows how well the movement system works in Borderlands 3, and especially in traversal and combat scenarios, the new movement system is really where it's at. Borderlands 3's movement system is absolutely amazing, and because of the new combat and movement system, gameplay is faster than ever, and I'd say it's better for it. And I haven't even gotten to the guns yet. The gun variety is key to Borderlands 3. It was so prevalent in the marketing material, and you understand why. The variety of gun mechanics, ammo types, aesthetics of the guns, everything is unique and beautiful. Every weapon I pick up is different to the one I have now. It is so amazing. During the era of Borderlands 2, everyone already thought the guns were amazing and uniquely different, but coming around to Borderlands 3, you can definitely see that they stepped up to the mark. the advertising for Borderlands 3 predominantly with the gun that walked as a grenade. That was a big part of the marketing and something that everyone's minds were blown about. They thought that was absolutely amazing to see that you can chuck your gun and it become a grenade. Borderlands 1, the pre-sequel, and 2 already had decent gun variety. Everyone was fine with the gun variety that was in that game. But Borderlands 3 definitely took it up to the mark. So we can all agree that Borderlands 3's guns are very different to one another. But there's not only guns in the game. There are vehicles, there are grenades. I like the fact that they added so much variety in the grenade side of things, from spawning actual enemies to fight other enemies, and then vehicles. Vehicles that were hover vehicles that we definitely didn't see in Borderlands 2, but were definitely just a reskin of the Cyclone, I believe it's called, but just cut the bottom off so it looked like it was floating. Either way, vehicles were really fun in Borderlands 3, although I feel like they were slightly overused. Perhaps maybe it's just because the worlds were a lot bigger. I don't know what it is, the worlds just seemed so much bigger than Borderlands 2's. Now, I'm a completionist, so it's a bit of my fault perhaps why I hate Borderlands 3's worlds, and it's just because since the worlds are so big, it frustrates me having to drive around and get all the areas in blue. But that's just a thing with me. Maybe I have a underlying OCD for that kind of thing. Maybe I do. Maybe I should go get that checked out. But honestly, although I have a completionist compulsion to do those things, the time I spent in those worlds was fantastic. And I generally play solo. And even playing solo, it was really nice to see all the variety in environments since we weren't just on Pandora anymore. We got to travel to multiple planets, which really did help for the gameplay loop, so you weren't seeing too much of the same visuals over and over again. Just a really nice touch, and I think that they'd certainly made the right decision opening up the universe to the player, rather than just keeping them on Pandora again. Aesthetically, Athenas is my favourite planet in Borderlands 3. The Japanese style of architecture is a real nice change from just the generic factory or the blown up buildings or just general junk sites that the majority of the previous games had as areas and environments. It's just a really nice change, and especially with the colour variety on Athenas. Athenas looks absolutely beautiful, and I don't really think anyone could deny that, but, you know, fight me in the comments if you believe otherwise. But in all seriousness, Borderlands 3's world design is absolutely beautiful. Randy Pitchford certainly did pull a magic trick on the world design for this game. But you know, none of his magic tricks compare to his magic trick at the reveal of Borderlands 3, so roll the clip.
Did you look? Did you look?
But on the story side of things, Borderlands 3 is a bit average to say the least. Borderlands 3's story isn't very enjoyable, let's put it that way. Far less enjoyable than Borderlands 2 and even the pre-sequel, which I know is quite a divisive game for those who have played it. The super basic plot of the game, and this is really basic off the top of my head right now, is that the Calypso twins want to become the biggest streamers in the world. They then take Lilith's powers so more people subscribe to her. They then build a massive army of people who are her followers. Then Tyreen, the female Calypso twin, she then takes and kills Troy. You then find out that Typhon de Leon, the guy who you've been following basically through audio logs, is actually her and Troy's dad. I know, big plot twist. Wow, amazing. And then Tyreen kills her dad. Tyreen then becomes the Destroyer from the first game. I know, it's already getting very convoluted and strange. You kill Tyreen the Destroyer, and then Lilith gets her powers back, then Lilith kills herself for some reason I can't quite remember, and yeah, basic plot of Borderlands 3. But yeah, that's the super basic plot. Obviously, you can find videos online describing the entire plot of Borderlands 3's and all of its intertwining storylines with Reese and everyone like that. But yeah, Borderlands 3, meh. I didn't really enjoy the story very much. When playing, I sort of just felt nothing. Even when characters were being killed, I just felt nothing to these characters. Characters that I have played with in other games and really enjoyed, only to get to their deaths and not really care. It's a very weird thing to experience when playing a game from a franchise that you really enjoy and then not really enjoy the newest entry and just feel nothing. And I know a lot of the community feels very similar to what I am describing the plot to be. I have friends who didn't really enjoy the plot at all, compared to me who just didn't really care. The community generally doesn't really enjoy Borderlands 3's main campaign, but apparently the DLCs are where it's at, and I haven't picked up any of the DLCs as of yet. I'm waiting for the season pass, and then I'm gonna just go through all of the DLCs when they are all out and playable. But back to characters. This is the really fun bit of the video. Characters from the Tales of the Borderlands have been changed in such little ways, but then have dramatically changed the way that the character works. For example, well, Borderlands 2 and Tales from the Borderlands are arguably the best in the franchise as of now, followed by probably the pre-sequel and then 3 and then 1, just because the writing in 1's a bit different to the rest of the franchise. But in those games, Borderlands 2 and Tales from the Borderlands, story is such a key and integral part of the entire game, as it should be. But these Tales from the Borderlands characters feel shoehorned in and are just slightly out of character that it's annoying for people who have played the Tales from the Borderlands games and have learnt and lived with those characters and then have seen them in Borderlands 3. For characters like Vaughn, who were initially smart but nerdy and scrawny in Tales of the Borderlands, have now become a massive loser and very egotistical in Borderlands 3. And then you have characters like Reese, who were dorky and never wanted to get into a fight and idolised Handsome Jack, and has now somehow become the head of Atlas. I mean, it doesn't really clock with me how that happens. Like, where's the actual leader of Atlas? Where has he gone now? And the fact that he has a massive obsession with a mustache. That became such a big thing in the Borderlands community as to why that was such an integral part of Reese's character arc in Borderlands 3. Hey, do you like my mustache? Or do you not like my mustache? It's a very weird thing, but in a way, tonally, I feel like it is very Borderlands, but it's just still a very weird thing to have for that type of character who has changed in such a small way, but has made such a big impact on his overall character reception. Then we have Tyreen and Troy, the Calypso twins. Now, in this age, streaming and making videos is very integral to how society works, and they really tried to shoehorn it into Borderlands 3. Now, this might be more on the writing side of things, rather like with the story, rather than the actual character writing, but the fact that the whole plot basically revolves around two streamers trying to get more subscribers and followers is very, very odd. And it seems like the writers for Borderlands were trying to do a commentary on society in general and how we need to have followers and create content and everything like that, but the characters just... There was a mid to late game plot twist where Troy eventually tries to kill Tyreen by using all of her powers, but he eventually gets killed, and then Tyreen becomes the Destroyer later on. It just didn't really work for me, the entire streaming kind of meta commentary on society as of now. It felt very forced in the setting of Borderlands and certainly felt very out of place, especially that being the reason why most of the enemies are attacking you. And then later on they want to become gods. It's just such a convoluted story that doesn't match up. They should have really kept going with the goal of becoming a streamer. Although I didn't necessarily like it, it would have made for a more interesting plot than, hey, I want to become a streamer and become really popular, and then, no, I want to become a god, you know, a golden god. But, you know, it just doesn't work for me, honestly. I feel like that was one of the weaker aspects of Borderlands 3. And then we had Tannis becoming a siren. What have they done to these characters? Honestly, when Tannis became a siren, I was like, why not just give the powers back to Lilith? Although she does get her powers back towards the end. But it was very strange to see Tannis, who was a very smart, calculated character, then become this almighty being because now she has siren powers. That's all I want to say for Tannis. I do really like her writing though, but it just doesn't make sense how she becomes a siren. Overall, the game just doesn't really work in the sense that they try and push for these plot twists that don't really have any impact on your overall experience. And then we have the infamous Ava. Yeah, Ava is not everyone's favourite character in Borderlands 3. In fact, most people credit her as being the worst asset to Borderlands 3's story. And this all becomes a possibility because when Maya dies, Ava is the reason because of it happening. And then she moans about it to Lilith, and then all of a sudden Maya gets siren powers. Yeah, I know. But you can argue the fact that she's a child and she's just feeling very emotional, but the way that character deaths are portrayed in Borderlands 3 is very different to 2. In Borderlands 2, if a character like Roland, and when Roland dies, there is a massive plot change and the characters change around that character's death. In Borderlands 3, a character dies, boo-hoo, go to a next planet, and everyone forgets about that character. They honestly don't care about character deaths in Borderlands 3. And when these characters died, I didn't really care. At the end of Borderlands 3, where Lilith sacrifices herself, I didn't give a crap about her dying. Although I loved her in Borderlands 2, in Borderlands 3, the story and the writing just made me not care about character deaths. And that's the thing that I was really upset about, is the fact that they made me go from loving and caring for characters to then not feeling a single emotion even when one of them sacrifices themselves. But overall, Borderlands 3 is okay. It's not the best in the franchise, and certainly the majority of the fan base of Borderlands would agree with me on that part. They would say, Borderlands 2, Tales, best games in the series, go play them instead. But just because the story isn't fantastic doesn't mean the overall gameplay loop isn't fantastic. I really enjoyed the gameplay of Borderlands 3. I thought it felt smooth and slick and every name under the sun. It's just that the story held back the overall enjoyable experience for the game. Traversing worlds was fun, getting new guns was fun, looting was fun. But the story just held it back, and that's something that everyone will hold on their backs when playing and thinking of Borderlands 3. I can't really see myself replaying Borderlands 3 for this fact, because I didn't really enjoy the story. And I don't like the fact that all the planets will be locked off to me, but still. But when people say that Borderlands 3 is the worst in the franchise, don't play it, I just don't understand why. Borderlands 3 is still a good game. Although it might not be the best, it is still enjoyable, and I'm pretty sure the enjoyability factor will be ramped up so much more when playing with a full squad of friends. Personally for me, I played solo. I played by myself with a few sections with one of my friends, but apart from that, I played by myself, and I still thoroughly enjoyed the gameplay experience. And although the story didn't hold up to everyone's expectations, and especially with the controversy around Borderlands 3 about pay cuts and all that, I'm not going to get into it because it's not relevant to the actual gameplay experience. But if you find it at a second-hand game store where you can pick it up for cheap, like Game or CX or Best Buy, I believe, if you're from America, then I'd say give it a go. Especially if you've played the other entries in the franchise, you will find some enjoyment from Borderlands 3. And some of the missions in the campaign were really fun and enjoyable, and I wish I could just replay those sections rather than having to go through the game again just to play those 1 or 2 missions one more time. But yeah, that was Borderlands 3 and my opinions on how the gameplay works and the story and everything like that. And that was a retrospective that I enjoyed creating, and I enjoyed playing the game, and I would recommend it if you've played the franchise before, or you just want a good looter shooter with really fun and engaging gameplay. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, then subscribe and turn on that notification button so you don't miss another upload from me. So thank you, and goodbye.